Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. Give me the Star Wars, don't let them end.
Let's talk some Star Wars. We're reviewing all the Star Wars movies leading up to Episode 9, the last, as they keep talking about the end of the Skywalker saga, we'll just say the end of this trilogy, whatever we want to call it. And we're watching all of pretty much all of the movies. I think we're going to skip one, but all of the Star Wars movies leading up to that. We're on Attack of the Clones. Thoughts leading up to this? What have you thought about the revisiting so far of Star Wars?
It's been a lot of fun, especially now that they're all available on Disney Plus in 4K.
Yeah, that's really helped. I will say this is when I switched over. Perfect timing. Yeah. Could not have planned it better. We just finished watching the original movies, and just in time for Disney Plus, we're watching them now in 4K on Disney Plus. So I'm liking that. I have them elsewhere. I have them digitally. I have them on Blu-ray. This is where I don't really have to necessarily go with a specific version because they're already so I don't know, CGI'd.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So this, you said leading up to this is your least favorite of the prequels, is that right?
Yeah.
So leading up to this, and that's why I asked you like what your thoughts were leading up to it. Leading up to this, I've not watched this movie in forever, and I used to think that this was one of my favorites from the prequels. And now I would argue that it's on par with Episode 1 in many ways, where I think Revenge of the Sith, I mean, I haven't watched Revenge of the Sith in a while, but I have problems with this movie just like I have problems with Episode 1, but there are things that I like about it as well, so we'll definitely dive into those. Obviously, they stole that ship, by the way, from Deep Space Nine. But the visuals in the movies are great. We're not really going to have to argue a lot about that. But a lot of my problems and a lot of the other people's problems deal with Anakin and his relationship to Padme. I think that's a big part in my opinion because this movie is it's really their movie. It's about their relationship because previously he was 9 and she was 14 and now they're both kind of adults and now they're
20.
falling in love. He's 20 now?
Yeah, 20, she's 24.
Okay, so yeah, that makes sense. So 10 and 14 and now 20, 24. So they're now adults or adult-ish. And this goes into one of my the things that people, they may not be politically correct anymore, but he says some creepy stuff, really creepy stuff to her, but because he's attractive, she just goes with it. And I don't know, like, I know part of it's writing, part of it's delivery, part of it's directing. I think Hayden Christensen gets a lot of flack, but I don't think he's horrible. I think it's really bad directing in this whole movie.
I don't know. I mean, it's a really bad script. Mm-hmm. That's like the direction. Like, honestly, the movie isn't terribly shot.
No. Well, dialogue and directing of
The script sucks.
Yeah.
Awful.
It's awful, and there are simple things. Okay, and I'm kind of jumping the gun as we're talking about this, but I just remembered this, and I wanted to bring it up. One of the things we're talking about as we revisit are things we didn't notice before. Yeah. And you're going to laugh at me about this, but for some reason I spaced out the fact that early on that Amidala is like, I bet it was Count Dooku. And for some reason I spaced that out like in my brain that she mentions him very early on. I know I'm probably in the minority on that, but like Mace Windu says, "Oh well, Dooku couldn't have done that because he was once a Jedi."
Yeah.
And okay, but if you were once a Jedi and you're no longer a Jedi, are you still as honorable? Do you still hold the code? What happened? Like, it was just a really weird line where you're like, that logic doesn't really make sense. If you were once a Jedi and you're not a Jedi anymore, you're now a rogue or whatever you want to call it. Like you're AWOL. How are you still vouching for this dude? Because you just knew him.
So that leads into what I noticed more heavily. Like, it's something that I realized when I was younger, but I didn't really hone in on it until I was watching this one. There's lots of comments that Mace and Yoda make, where you realize, as wise as Jedi are, they're stupid. Like they don't know anything. Like they get point blank told, about Sidious, and they're like, "Nah, we would know."
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, you're exactly right. Like, and they try to blow that off, like in the later part of it, where they're like, "Do we tell them that we've lost our connection?" To like, oh, well, let's not do that. Like, if you'd established that earlier, they wouldn't have looked like, because the first episode, right, episode 1, the entire Jedi Council, like, they sit on a council, they make really dumb decisions, or sometimes good decisions, and saying don't train Anakin, but they don't do anything. They don't predict anything. They don't foresee anything that's happening. And then in this episode, halfway through, we realize, like, oh, wait a minute, like, they're losing connection to the Force, which makes sense with the Sith. Like, that's cutting them off. But, like, tell me about that before, so I, as an audience member, know what's going on.
Yeah. That was the biggest thing that I realized, where it's like, as smart as Jedi are, they're stupid. Like, because you see, I'm watching Clone Wars right now as well on Disney Plus, and you learn about, in terms of like the military minds and stuff. They're the generals. There's other generals and stuff, and there's other admirals, but like they are largely in charge of the military strategy that the Clone Wars are going through, and you see where they really excel. But it's crazy how many times in this movie they're presented with information and they're just like, no, that can't be right. Yeah. Like, what? No.
And you're right. Like, and again, like, until the end of the movie, you're just like, what do the Jedi even do at this point? Like I would think, like, oh, do the council, do senators talk to them? Maybe it's like a religious organization where they like kind of get maybe people go to them for like guidance. You know, they're monks. And then in the end of this movie, you're like, oh, okay, look, they're commanding an army, which leading up to this, they did not have an army. It's one of the things that Amidala is like voting on. Should we have an army? What do we do? Like, should the Republic, if you will, like, have an army to combat these the droids and everything? Which obviously goes into the convoluted plan of how the heck did Sidious know everything that he knew and plan everything that he planned, including failures of his own. But I mean, that's what happens, I guess, when you're that powerful in the Force, that you have planned for even your own failures and you have contingency plans. So, but
I don't really think Sidious failed that many times.
Well,
he failed in killing some people.
But like, even when he put forward, it's not the perfect plan. Like, oh, I'm gonna send my I'm gonna send Darth Maul to go kill these Jedi. Like, in a perfect world, he would have just sent Darth Maul, killed both the Jedi, done. That didn't happen. Like, those kind of situations where it's like it wasn't even the things that even if it wasn't necessarily straight up failure, it wasn't the perfect plan, and he knew that it wasn't going to be perfect. And that's what I mean, is like, I mean, obviously we're talking about George Lucas retconning himself and retconning this character to be who he is, but at the same time, when you look at that as a military strategist, or like Thrawn wouldn't do something like this. Thrawn would have accounted for that, and there would have been losses that like made sense. Some of Sidious's failures or things that don't quite take off, in my opinion, like, they didn't seem like he was planning for Maul to die. I don't think he planned for Maul to die. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I just don't think he cares, because no matter what, he's getting what he wants. His thing is controlling the galaxy, and so in episode 1, he becomes the Supreme Chancellor. In episode 2, he gets soul power. He no longer has to go to the delegates to get anything done, and so that's where he doesn't care what happens to Maul. He doesn't care what happens to Dooku. He killed his own master in episode 1 that they didn't ever show, but we learn about in the lore. He doesn't care. Like, his thing is, I'm controlling everything, and no matter what, his plan is always advancing towards that. He wants to get this other stuff done, but it's just chess pieces.
Yeah, I'd agree. And there are some, I wouldn't say one of the problems that I had on it, which obviously now it's already established, so I don't really have problems with Mandalorian going on. Like, I really don't have problems with it. But this movie changed Boba Fett considerably. Leading up to this movie, Boba Fett was this unnamed bounty hunter. We didn't know a lot about him. What's that?
He wasn't. He was named. His name was Boba
I
Fett.
mean, yeah, I don't know why I said unnamed. A mysterious. I don't know why I said that. Mysterious bounty hunter. You just knew he was good, even if he was only good in the cartoon and in the holiday special. Like, because the movies he's not that great, but he's renowned a bounty hunter. He's the only one who tracks down the Falcon. And in this movie, you find out, oh well, he's actually the clone of Jango Fett, who's just as cool as him, if not cooler. I'd say arguably Jango Fett's cooler watching these movies again, because you can shake your head. I know. But like portrayal in the film, like I just mean that, like Boba Fett.
He has one of the worst lines in the movie, though.
Well, yeah, everyone has bad lines in this movie, but like it took Boba Fett from being this cool, mysterious, amazing bounty hunter, and you're just like, oh, well, that's just because he's a straight up copy of his dad, and he inherited like everything from his dad, and that kind of just let the air out of the balloon for me when I watched this movie. I mean, I loved Boba Fett growing up. And then watching this movie, you think that it's Boba Fett in the movie, and you realize, no, it's his dad, and Boba Fett's a clone of his dad. So to me, it almost lessens who Boba Fett is.
I don't know that it does, because, I mean, you can, if we wanted to go down this psychologically speaking of nature versus nurture, he is a clone, physically speaking, but he also has a different set of circumstances. He doesn't have the same, like, they said he's an unaltered clone, which means when he's born, he's going to age normally, he's going to learn normally, so he's not exactly like his dad, he's just genetically his dad. It's not anything that ever really occurred to me. You showed the scene on there, the thing where he's like, I'm just a simple man trying to make my way.
Like that was dumb. That was horrible, because it's like like everyone knows who he is. Like he's trying to play it off, but you're like, come on. Like, I'm here. I'm literally in the secret lair, if you want to call it a secret lair. I have figured out the scheme. may not know everything, but I showed up in, Dr. Evil's lair. I don't know his plan, but like don't keep playing coy at this point. You got to capture me or kill me. Like, and he's trying to play it off. So I agree with that. What are your thoughts on the lightsaber duel in this movie? Or duels, I should say. I have my thoughts, but what did you think about watching this again?
I thought it was great. I think that we really learn about Obi-Wan in each movie. He later mentions in, again, Clone Wars, the reason why he was able to beat Maul was he actually started tapping into the dark side. He got angry. We learned that Obi-Wan's thing is he is a master. He's not a knight. He's a master, but lightsaber dueling is not his forte. Like he's good at it. As we discover in episode 3, he's still better than Anakin, but and that's a thing that comes again through time as they go through the war. But I thought it was cool to have another Sith who is really good. Darth Maul was really good. Dooku's really good. It's really emphasizing what the dark side can do in terms of your combat skill, and then visually it looked cool.
I agree.
I think sorry,
I was just saying, I love this part. I love this part. I love this fight. This fight I love. I don't like Yoda.
I liked it. But I remember whenever I saw it again today, so I watched it again just today, I remember the exact feeling that I had when it came out. I remember it happening on screen in the movie theater, everybody being like
freaking out.
And I relived that emotion in my head, so I liked it. From that perspective, I still liked it.
So what I liked about it, I just showed what I liked because I zoomed in too much. What I did not like about the movie, about the duel, I don't even mind this part. What I did mind was him flipping around. I thought he does it at such a high degree. And I get that you're like, oh, well, he's using the Force to do this, and it's all about the Force and not about physicality. I think that they should have shown, like, his he doesn't have to flip, but just evading, like, just barely moving and somehow the lightsaber misses him. I would have preferred that, and I would have preferred him to use the Force more, which he does towards the end of the battle. Towards the end of the duel, when he has to, he's showing his mastery of the Force. He throws back some lightning. I'm like, that's what I like about this fight. I didn't like the flipping. What's that?
That's how the duel starts, is that he starts saying how much more powerful than Yoda he is, and Yoda's like, much to learn, still have.
Yeah.
But I didn't have a problem with it because I feel like he's 900 ish. I think he's like 870.
We'll call it 870.
You can tell he clearly does not move well. It's not like I don't think it's a farce that he does move well, because he's even floating in the chair earlier in the movie to keep up with everybody. So he's definitely using the Force in terms of that battle. It didn't bother me.
It bothered me to say, if like you're that in tune with the Force and it doesn't wear you out to the point of that you'd think that it would wear him out, right? It's kind of the idea, the same question I would have about Professor Xavier in the X-Men, in all the X-Men stuff. It's like, okay, well, if you're telekinetic, why don't you just move your legs with your telekinesis? Like, not all the time, but when you need to.
X isn't telekinetic.
He is. He's mostly telepathic, but he also has telekinesis.
He never uses telekinesis.
Thought he was telekinetic as well.
No, Jean Grey is telekinetic.
Yeah, of course she is, but that's her forte. Yeah.
I've never seen him move anything with his mind.
So I'm looking at his telepathy, low-level telekinesis, but yeah, enough. He can move things with his mind. He has it. He just his thing: psychokinesis, telekinesis, telepathy. Telepathy is just his thing. Like he was like, I am amazing at this. Where Jean Grey is pretty good at that, but telekinesis is totally her thing. Like that's why I was having to double check myself. I'm like, no.
So maybe he just didn't use it a lot in the cartoon.
He doesn't use it a lot in the cartoon. He uses it a little bit in the comics, but it's like it's not his thing. Like he has other people that can do it. He knows he's not viable in like combat with it and everything, but you know,
that'd be why he can't use his legs though, I think.
Maybe, but it's like, would you try? Like, why not? Like, or to be able to just like position your leg up, like, okay, just let me move my foot up so I can help myself out of the chair, that kind of thing. Doesn't do any of it. I could say the same thing. Sorry, I'm like kind of like rambling, but like the same thing about what was I talking about?
Yoda.
Force powers. Yoda. Yeah, Yoda. Like, why doesn't Yoda use it to just kind of assist him a little bit in his movement? Because he doesn't, unless like until the scene, and as soon as the scene's over, he gets his cane again with the Force, and then he hobbles off. Like, I'm not saying he should float everywhere, because that's just abusive and like overpowered, but you'd think that like he would, I don't know, use it more than just in this one battle and then never again.
I think it's because of what he spends the majority of his time doing. Like Yoda is very well known to look at the past and the future a lot.
Sure.
He at this point, I don't know if you watch movies with subtitles now.
A little bit.
But he even hears Qui-Gon. Whenever he hears Anakin going off on the sand people, he in the subtitles it says Qui-Gon saying Anakin. Like, so I think the reason why is because he spends the majority of his Force power trying to be in tune with the universe, as opposed to wasting it on something like moving, whereas he had to for this fight because he needed to protect his boys.
Yeah, and I get that. And then they even mention like that Anakin's an even better duelist than like but anyways,
he thinks he is.
But either way, like, we get to see some good action in this movie. That's one of the only good things. I'll just wrap it up because I know we've been talking about this. We could just keep talking for another hour, but my problem I mentioned on an earlier one, one of my other problems was they mention Count Dooku, and then they mention Sifo Dyas, and then like Sifo Dyas is just dismissed as like, oh yeah, like he died, and I obviously didn't get it this time, but when I first saw the movie and shortly after, I was like, is this the same person? Like, is it another name? But now obviously it's not true. It can't be, because Mace Windu straight up says, refers to the Jedi as Count Dooku.
It's Tyrannus.
It's as Tyrannus. Yeah. But I don't know, for some reason that messed me up earlier on. Didn't mess me up this time. I think that was just me watching it as a what was I, 15?
Yeah.
Some 16-year-old, 15-year-old, whatever, 16-year-old.
No, I think that's an easy thing to think that he is.
Yeah.
That until Obi-Wan says that Cypher Diaz is dead.
Yes.
My biggest problem with this movie, aside from just the obvious scripting, is what they do to the Amidala character. She's a genius. Like, they admit she was the queen in 14, and we find out that that's an elected position on her planet. It's not something that you just ascend to as part of your lineage, like in Britain, where we have the queen who by blood right. She didn't get that by blood right. She was elected to the position at 14. They tried to extend her. She's a great mind.
Yeah.
How do you take this childish 20-year-old dude who complains constantly, says things like it isn't fair, lets you know that he murders an entire tribe of beings? The Sand People are looked down upon. They're not on the level of human in the human eyes, but a lot of beings aren't. But he mentions that he slaughters not just the men, but the women and the children too. I killed them all. And all of that, and she still falls in love with his dumbass.
He's pretty. Because he's pretty is what it boils down to. Because she has got goals. She went from being a queen, and she could have stopped. She could have stopped at being a queen. What does she do? She becomes a senator. She's still got stuff. She's like, I'm fighting for this. I'm fighting for that. We need to do what's right. And like passionate, intelligent woman. And she is like her career, her life, literally is detoured and eventually killed because some pretty boy talked about sand. Like, I don't understand it.
Yeah, that's my big thing, is because Amidala is a great character.
Yeah,
you can see like a comparison between like her and Leia later on, even though they didn't know each other. Like, it's just, it bugged me so much to where the script that they gave him, I understand that it's just this undertone thing. Like, he has a charisma, they have a connection. There's clear points where they have that the two actors have some good chemistry. Sure. Eye contact wise, there's that one where they're like in the grassy area on Naboo, and they're flirting a little bit, and they're just kind of like talking, and like it's a more natural conversation. But every time he becomes a little boy, and then she clearly shows that she is an adult, that's where it separates from me. And then like it becomes this thing where they're about to die, and she's like, I love you, and I'm like, what? Like, and that's where I had to stop myself and be like, this is a space opera. It's a soap opera. That's why it's this way. But I hate it.
It's a space opera, but like, what does he do? What does he do? Like, he stops the slug worm things. Like, he jumps in there. But at the same time, like, if he wasn't there, Obi-Wan sensed it too, and Obi-Wan would have been through that, in there killing them. In fact, which this, I'm going to quasi-steal the joke from Red Letter Media. If you haven't watched Red Letter Media's reviews of this, they're hilarious. But Obi-Wan jumps through the window at the and not Anakin. The impulsive one doesn't jump through the window, and then Anakin's like, oh, I got to bail my master out again. Like, it almost seemed like that flipped.
Yeah, that was weird.
Like,
I didn't actually, that's weird.
Yeah, that should have been... Anakin jumps out, and Obi-Wan goes, oh, here we go again. And then he has to like go find bail him out, like, because Anakin's talking about bailing Obi-Wan out, which they have to tell us about. But it's like, oh, like, look, I had to bail you out of this problem. But Obi-Wan is the one having to stop him from being impulsive, and like, Obi-Wan was impulsive for some reason. And of course, we could go into the argument of like, if Jango Fett can kill the bounty hunter he hired to kill Amidala, why didn't he just snipe her like when that window was open?
Yeah, who knows? And then I can't let this talk go without my favorite Jedi, Mace Windu is the man. He's stupid whenever he say the same things that Yoda's saying, but in terms of like his pure awesomeness, and where you see he's the best warrior, and you see it more when we talk about episode 3. I can't wait to like bring up the thing that really nobody ever seems to mention about Mace Windu. But you see his raw power. You see what a force he is in terms of that. The purple lightsaber to me is iconic because I had never seen one before, and for some reason, as a kid, I latched onto it, and I still have not let that go. I did that in Jedi Fallen Order. I made a purple lightsaber in there. He's dope. He's so dope.
Yeah, I will. So when the Force FX lightsabers came out, I guess not when they came out, but like they were on sale, and I could have had any one of them, and I bought Mace Windu's because the hilt looks awesome. It's purple, and purple's you see right there. Yeah, so you got yours. That's the Hasbro.
It's the one when they first bought the franchise. Cassie went to Disney World.
Okay.
Had like this kind of construct a lightsaber thing. Not to the extent that Galaxy's Edge has,
Sure.
but
they still have those at Disney World, by the way. Yeah, they still have those at Disney World where you can construct your own. Yeah, I mean, like I bought that. Like purple's one of my favorite colors, and his Mace Windu is just amazing, and comes in there like a boss, knocking people out, beheading Jango Fett. Like, boom, boom. Like it's great seeing. I mean, the Jedi are great, but you can see that man is commanding it. And then we'll talk about him more in the next movie. But yeah, I'd say between Mace Windu and Obi-Wan Kenobi, those are the redeeming parts of this movie, in my opinion. So, final thoughts on that? Just Mace Windu rocks.
Yeah, Mace Windu's awesome. The Battle of Geonosis is dope. That's where, again, the prequels, as much as anybody wants to talk about them, the action is always great.
Sure.
Some people could maybe argue about its choreographed nature, but who cares? Like, it's just cool. And the thing that, literally, this is the only time this ever happens. It does not happen in any other movie. Multiple Jedi in a fight at one time.
Yes, other than like more than two, because we get two in episode 1, but yeah, tons of Jedi. You don't get to see this before this. Never again. I'll agree. Like the action is great. There's just so much going on, sometimes to a fault. But yeah, well,
and you know what else I hate?
What's that?
Sand.
It's coarse. Gets everywhere. Anyways, let us know what you thought about episode 2 in the comments. And is it your least favorite, or is it towards the bottom? Or do you think that we're giving it a bad rap and that it's better than Revenge of the Sith? Let us know in the comments. We'll see you later.
Bye.